On this week's episode of the Honest Art podcast, it's getting a little juicy. We are talking about creating under the influence. And when I say under the influence, I'm talking about creating under the influence of your substance of choice, right? Alcohol or whatever it might be. And this can be a little tricky for some people because listen, I'm not going to tell you how to create. I talked about this in the podcast. I'm not going to tell Snoop Dogg how to create because he's doing all right. So I'm not going to do that. But there's been some research, and I do think it's worth talking about this topic. So I want to share some of my experiences with you because there can be some benefits for sure. Right? A lot of people don't want to say that, but there can be some benefits, and I talk about those in the podcast. There also could be some negative impact on our work, right? So not to mention what it can do for our health, but it can actually have some negative impact on our work. So I think it's important that we just understand this and that we are aware of it, okay? So the first thing is here's an example. There are many, but one of the things that it can have a benefit of is it could have a benefit of altered perception. Now, some people might think that's not a benefit, that's negative, but it just depends on the artist and it depends on what you are trying to get from that. So sometimes an altered perception can feel like it's opening up some creative blocks, that it lowers your inhibitions a little bit. So having an altered perception might be considered a benefit for some artists. But on the other hand, one of the negative impacts is it could lead to some inconsistent quality. This is one I related to. So when I say inconsistent quality, I think it's important to understand that whether we are under the influence or something or not, we have to consider that there are four fundamental things that all great art possesses. And just because, we are have had a little something, you cannot take that away. If you want to have great art, it has to possess those fundamental things, right? So I'm not here to tell you how to create. That's totally up to you. But I do think it's an important conversation for us to have as artists so that we can have the information to make a decision about what's best for us and our work. So head to the podcast to listen to all of the information. I think you're going to get a lot out of it.